Hello everyone and welcome back to another IELTS modelled writing video. Today we are going to look at two task 1 questions, and as always we will be making our plans and then doing the write-up as if we were in the IELTS exam itself. So this is great practice for you, and yes, hopefully this helps you today. We'll talk through techniques and how to approach these types of questions, and of course top tips on how to get the top band scores. So yeah, stick along today if you're interested in the task 1 part of the writing exam. Okay, let's see what we're going to tackle first. We are going to look at a line graph to start with. And the question is as follows. The graph below shows the number of tourists visiting a particular Caribbean island between 2010 and 2017. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Okay, let's have a look closer at this question. So we're looking at the number of tourists visiting a particular Caribbean island. We don't know the specifics, between the years of 2010 and 2017, so 7 years. Summarize the information. Now we're being told how to by selecting and reporting on the main features, just the main features, and make comparisons where they are relevant. So this is really important, this word, where relevant, because we don't want to make comparisons for every single part of the data. We just want to pick the most striking or the most important features to talk about. Okay, so now that we've read the question, we can have a look at the data itself. Okay. Right, lots going on here, so let's have a think. This is the number of tourists visiting a Caribbean island 2010 to 2017. That's the title. On the x-axis, we've got the years 2010 to 2017. On the y-axis, going up this way, we've got millions of visitors. So these numbers are in the millions. Oh, the top line refers to the total visitors, so the total amounts. Then we have a triangle, which refers to the middle line, which refers to visitors staying on the island. And the bottom line here, the squares, is talking about the visitors staying on cruise ships. All right then, so we've got some interesting things going on. Initial thoughts, generally, over the course of the years, visitors increased. So that's something we can think about for our overview. There are points where obviously that this doesn't happen, particularly visitors staying on the island, that sort of plateaus and then decreases and then creeps up again. So that's an interesting line. However, the total does increase. And in the last year, all 3 types of visitors increased. Right, so I think we're ready for our planning stage now. This is really important for you to plan thoroughly. You have 20 minutes for this question, minimum of 150 words. So you might be thinking, oh, it's not a lot of words, but it's not a lot of time as well. So a plan helps you to maximize your time, which is limited, and you can really draw upon the most relevant information here and create a strong essay. Okay, so group number 1 then. Well, we've got different approaches to this we can think about. We could maybe group 2 of the lines together that follow a similar pattern. For example, visitors staying on the cruise ships and total. We could maybe talk about some of the information on the axes. So, millions of visitors. Probably that wouldn't be the easiest of groupings. Years, though, on the other hand, could be quite straightforward. We always want to make it quite straightforward. So generally, they figures increase until plateau. Then things start to change after 2015 is kind of sticking out to me. After that year, quite a few things change. So maybe we could split them up into years. Perhaps we could talk about 2010 to 2015, and then the last 2 years are quite dramatic. So we could say 2015 to 2017, perhaps. And the overview, in general, we want a sweeping statement here. The number of visitors increased over the 7 years. That's our general theme that we're going to talk about. Okay. Right, so we have we've grouped them together logically, which makes sense to us. If you're following along at home, maybe you have a different grouping, but as long as you're seeing the structure and understanding how we do it, then that's absolutely fine. We can make groups that are logical. Hey, so we've got our question, we've got our verbs and adverbs, which are really going to help us make strong sentences in the write-up. And then, of course, we've got our data down here. So what is the first thing that we need to do? We need to summarize this sentence here. Not summarize, sorry, paraphrase. Really important skill in the IELTS exam is paraphrasing. So we can open up with, perhaps we can say, the graph below shows the number of tourists. The line graph provides data on the number of visitors to a Caribbean island, to an island in the Caribbean. We don't want to lose meaning, so we want to paraphrase as much as we can, but keep the accuracy, the meaning there. To an island in the Caribbean between the years 2010 and 2017. The line graph provides data on the number of visitors to an island in the Caribbean between the years 2010 and 2017. Okay, so now what do? We want to summarize. We want to make our overview, which we planned in the notes, and you'll have the notes there to help you. So we can start by saying something like in general or on the whole. In general, the amount of tourists, we want to say they increased generally. That's, perhaps we could say holidayed, holidayed on the Caribbean or island, Caribbean destination, maybe. We'll try and use different words as much as possible. As long as we're not repeating ourselves too much, then that's the main thing. The amount of tourists that holidayed on the Caribbean, or maybe at the Caribbean destination, increased during the 7 years. Okay. And any other observations? Perhaps we could say the visitors on land, staying on the island, were higher than the ones who were staying on the cruise ship for most of the time. So we could say, moreover, the visitors staying on the island. Just realised we don't need a capital I there. On the island. Were higher than those on cruise ships or on large boats, for a different word, were higher than those on large boats for the majority of the years. In general, the amount of tourists that holidayed at the Caribbean destination increased during the 7 years. Moreover, the visitors staying on the island were higher than those on large boats for the majority of the years. Staying on land, maybe. Okay, so we're editing as we're going along. We're making sure everything sounds okay. Lovely. So let's now make a start on our first group, and we're going to talk about the general trends from 2010 to 2015, really. So let's begin in 2010. All what was happening, all the numbers were at their lowest for all of the groups. There were the least amounts of visitors in all. In 2010, there were the least amount of visitors in general to the islands. In general to the island, yeah. Okay. We could talk about an example. So maybe total visitors we could draw upon being at 1 million. Total visitors were the highest at 1 million. And what was the lowest? Oh, visitors on cruise ships. And visitors on cruise ships were the lowest at, we've got 250,000. There we go. Okay, so let's have a look and visit. The figures increased for for total and on land by 2012. However, in 2012, cruise ships fell. Okay, so we can discuss that. Figures or numbers increased. Gradually, maybe. Gradually. By 2012. However, cruise ship holiday makers fell to the same level they were at in 2010. Okay, then what happens? We have a general increase from cruise ships and a gradual increase with total. However, from the years 2013 to 2015, on the island visitors plateaued. They stayed the same. There was a steady growth until 2015 for most groups, 2 out of the 3. Although visitors we're checking our spelling as we're going along, really important. Visitors staying on the island island. Did plateau, and this is a tricky word to spell, E-A-U, from the years 2013 to 2015. And let's draw a figure at 1.5 million. At 1.5 million. Okay, let's have a read of this back. In 2010, there were the least amount of visitors in general to the island. Total visitors were at the highest at 1 million, and visitors on cruise ships were at the lowest at 250,000. Figures increased gradually by 2012. However, cruise ship makers fell to the same level they were at in 2010. There was a steady growth until 2015 for most groups. Although visitors staying on the island, oh, we don't need a capital I there, did plateau from the years 2013 to 2015 at 1.5 million. Wow, okay, we've really just picked the relevant informations there, comparing, contrasting as we're going along. I think that's brilliant. Okay, so we're going to go into a smaller paragraph now, but we're going to talk about the interesting years after 2015. Okay, so what happened then? We have visitors staying on the island had a dip and then a rise again. So after 2015, numbers decreased. Have we used decreased? Potentially dropped for island, maybe dwellers. And they dropped to, well, they dropped by 250,000. And numbers dropped for island dwellers by 250,000. We don't always have to state the number exactly in a year. So by 2016, they dropped. However, the last year, 2016 to 2017, saw an increase for all groups. Even so, the last year saw a moderate climb. Well, actually, total visitors surged. Let's talk about that. And surged for total visitors, which at the end of 2017 stood at 3.5 million. 3.5 million. Okay. The next or the second highest figure number belonged to cruise ships. I like a bracket, so we can say cruise ships 2 million, and for cruise ship visitors maybe, or maybe we can be specific to visitors staying on cruise ships, and 2 million. Maybe we could talk about how it's 1 million less for visitors on the island. Visitors staying on the island. Visitors staying on the island were not 1 million, sorry, 500,000. Oh, it's always important to read the y-axis. Were 500,000 less than cruise ships. Okay, shall we have a read? After 2015, numbers dropped for island dwellers by 250,000 in a year. Even so, the last year saw a moderate climb for most groups and surged for total visitors, which at the end of 2017 stood at 3.5 million. The second highest number belonged to visitors staying on cruise ships, 2 million, and visitors staying on the island were 500,000 less than cruise ships. Okay, so I think we've reported back the information, the most striking elements, and we've picked figures from the graph to talk about. So let's, as always, check the word count. Okay, so to my calculations, this comes to 210 words. So we're looking for 150 word minimum there, but I think this is a realistic amount to aim for. And as long as you understand the structure that we're following, then you can, of course, tailor that to you. But this is a great way to approach the task one questions. Okay, so that was our line graph. Hopefully that it makes sense to you, and if you are following along at home, hopefully you're more confident with that. I think it's time now to head to our second task. Now this is going to look at a diagram. Okay, now diagrams can throw students. They can pose a bit of a worry because it's a different type of, obviously it's not a chart, it's not a graph, it's a slightly different structure. Well, we follow the same structure, but we use slightly different words to describe the graph. But the diagram, but I quite like diagrams. I think it makes a nice change sometimes. So we'll look at this one together and we'll, of course, come up with a plan as always. So the diagrams, oh, we have more than one with this S, below show a structure that is used to generate electricity from wave power. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. So just like the first one, we're going to follow the same format by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. So what are we thinking about here? We are shown a structure that is used to generate electricity from wave power. That is what we are looking at. Okay, let's bring in the diagram. Here we go. Right, so we have the first diagram, diagram A. And we can see the wave going into the chamber. And that creates air pressure going upwards out of the column, which then in turn spins this turbine connected to a light bulb, which is able to, this structure here turns that energy, wave energy, into energy that we can utilize for a light bulb. Okay, and then picture B, diagram B. The wave is going back into the sea, it's receding out of the chamber. That shifts the air pressure downwards towards the wave. However, the turbine keeps spinning and electricity carries on being produced. Okay. So then, the easiest way to plan for this is I'm simply going to talk about diagram A, and then I'm going to talk about diagram B. I think that's a really straightforward way to approach this question. And of course, make comparisons between the two as we go along, here and there. Okay, so the overview, in general, there are two main stages of producing energy or electricity from waves, we can say. There are clearly two steps, step A, step B. Okay, so as you can see, we're approaching this diagram the same way that we would approach a chart, a graph. It really is the same thinking here, just with a slightly different piece of data, but it doesn't really affect the way that we structure it. So how do we start this question off? Of course, we need to paraphrase, you guessed it. So we need to look at this sentence here and think about how we can paraphrase. So the diagrams below, I quite like the word pictorials, that's quite nice. The pictorials provide information, show a structure regarding a piece of engineering, regarding a structure, regarding a construction that is used to generate electricity from wave power. That is utilized to create, synonym for electricity. Oh, it's tricky. We might keep that in because we don't want to lose the meaning, like we've said before. That is utilized to create electricity from the ocean, perhaps. We could be more specific. Is there another word for waves? Maybe from the ebbs and flows of the ocean, which is referring to the movement of the water. Let's read this back and have a think. The pictorials provide information regarding a construction that is utilized to create electricity from the ebbs and flows of the ocean. Okay, I think that's a good try at paraphrasing that. Don't worry, you don't have to be an expert on the ocean to in order to describe this. We're just using quite we want to use specific, but we don't need to be obviously an expert in this field to report back on this information. Okay, so what do we need to do now? We need to do our overview. So in general, on the whole, generally speaking, there are two main stages of producing power from the energy that perhaps we can say waves provide. Any other observations? Both include this air pressure. So we could say both steps involve trapping air pressure, trapping air maybe, and creating pressure, perhaps. So we're just making an additional further generalization there. In general, there are two main stages of producing power from the energy that waves provide. Both steps involve trapping air and creating pressure. There we go. All right, so let's make a start on diagram A. We could say in the first image, brackets, we could say A. In the first image, what is happening? How does this whole process start? The process begins with, well, what has to happen first? This wave has to whoosh, come in. With the incoming wave, and then it seems as if that is then caught in this chamber structure here, which is caught in the chamber we've got structure in the in the question, we've used construction that has been built, maybe. Should we mention that actually this is all able to happen because there is a cliff or a sea wall that this is attached to, if you like? This piece of engineering is able to contain the water as it is built into the cliff or sea wall. There we go. So we're just explaining how this is all able to happen here. Okay, so the wave comes in, it comes into the chamber, and then it looks as if this creates air pressure that heads up into the column. The incoming wave creates or produces air pressure that has nowhere else to go apart from up the column. Up the column. Or upwards into the column, maybe? Into the column. Now let's talk about the turbine. Now it's being spun in a clockwise direction. This motion spins the turbine in a clockwise direction. A unit is attached. We can talk about how then this produces the electricity. So a unit is attached where the spinning can be, we could say, transformed into energy for electricity. Okay. Right, let's have a read back. In the first image, A, the process begins with the incoming wave, which is caught in the chamber that has been built. The piece of engineering is able to contain the water as it is built into the cliff or seawall. The incoming wave produces air pressure that has nowhere else to go apart from upwards into the column. This motion spins the turbine in a clockwise direction. A unit is attached where the spinning can be transformed into energy for electricity. Let's talk about the light bulb coming on, ultimately being used for a light bulb. Okay, I think that's good. We've talked about the main features there, and the process. This is all about the process here. So, okay. In diagram B, the wave, what's happening here? The wave is going back, it's receding, bye-bye. And then this is changing the air pressure. So that's the main point that we want to mention here. The wave is receding, which means going back away from the cliff edge. And therefore it's going out of the chamber as well, and therefore out of the chamber. So what happens? This creates, have we used creates a lot? So this creates, what's happening? Well, it's inversed. There's an inverse movement of air. So this creates an inverse, it's going back on itself. Movement of air. This time it is being pulled. Oh, this time it is being pulled into the chamber. It's almost following the wave, isn't it? So we could say that following the direction of the wave. However, does this affect the direction of the turbine? No, it doesn't. Nevertheless, even so, although the turbine does not, change direction and continues to spin and therefore create energy continuously. In turn, the energy is still being produced for electricity and the light bulb. Okay, let's have a read of this back. In diagram B, we don't need it in the diagram. In diagram B, the wave is receding away from the cliff edge and therefore out of the chamber. This creates an inverse movement of air. This time it is being pulled into the chamber following the direction of the wave. Nevertheless, the turbine does not change direction and continues to spin. In turn, the energy is still being produced for the electricity and the light bulb. Okay, let me just check that I've not confused chamber and column. This time it's being pulled into the chamber, yes, following the direction of the wave. Okay, instead of therefore out of the chamber, we could say therefore out of the, we've used construction, we've used engineering, out of the man-made, energy. Actually, I think on second thoughts, if we can paraphrase, then of course, and keep using these synonyms, but sometimes it's just not accurate, so that's okay. We try. Okay, I think that's good. We've structured it exactly the same as we would another task one for, say, a line graph. We use a paraphrase opening, then we go into the overview, group 1, group 2. In this case, it was a diagram, so picture 1, picture A, picture B. There we go. Okay, let's count the words and see how we're doing. So this comes to about 198 words. So we're looking for a 150 word minimum. I think this is a good amount to aim for in your answers. And yeah, we can see that we've approached diagrams in the same way as we would approach other types of task ones. Okay, brilliant. So that brings us to the end of our two task ones today. So we had a line graph initially, and then we had a diagram. So hopefully that has provided you some information on how to answer these two different types of task ones. We look at many different task ones in these videos, so if you wanted to have a look and at some others, we've got all different types there. But yeah, hopefully that's helped you today if you're following along at home. And do let us know if you've got any questions. We always like to hear from you. That's great. Well, next video we'll be looking at two different task ones as always, so you can yes, stick around for that one, and hopefully that's helped.